Hi, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the class BMN 504, Foundations of Buddhist Thought, Part 1. I hope you all are doing great. So today is the last session of our class. Next week will be the final, June 13th. Yeah, next week will be the final. So today, being the last day, we have to cover one more subject area. So last week, not last week, the week before last, we were talking about the emergence of Theravada Buddhism and the Abhidhamma and all sorts of developments in Buddhism. And now today, we have to focus on another branch of Buddhism that is existing in the world even today, which we call Mahayana Buddhism, Mahayana tradition. So I'm sure you are familiar with these two traditions, Theravada and the Mahayana. Last week, week before last, we were talking about Theravada. And today we are going to focus on Mahayana. The very term Mahayana, Maha means greater, big, great. Yana means vehicle. So then Mahayana means greater vehicle. That's how some scholars translate it. So the important thing is if this tradition is the greater vehicle, then the other tradition should be logically it should be then the lower, smaller vehicle, right? Lower or smaller vehicle. And the term they use, only these Mahayana people, they use the term to recognize the Theravada tradition as Hinayana. Hina means low, somewhat smaller. Yana again means the vehicle. So Hinayana means smaller or lower vehicle. So lower vehicle refers to Theravada tradition, as opposed to a greater vehicle is for Mahayana. So these are the two important branches of Buddhism. So we were looking at the fundamental teachings of the Buddha. So these fundamental teachings in the near centuries after the passing of the Buddha, they developed into very strong schools or branches, as we saw the other time, the Theravada, or another word, Hinayana. When you say, Hinayana, it is like they call it a pejorative term. Pejorative means insulting, like it's not a positive word, pejorative term. Who used that term, Hinayana, when Mahayana tradition arose in India. Time frame is like around the turn of the century, perhaps even a century before. That is like 1st century BCE or 1st century CE. During that period of time is the time period Mahayana, the new school, the greater vehicle came into existence. When they came into existence, they labeled that pejorative term, pejorative name, the label against their rivals. Their rivals at that time were Theravada Buddhists. So they did not use the term Theravada, but they called them, oh, you guys are following the, you guys are in the lower vehicle, whereas we are in the greater vehicle. So you guys are smaller. That's why it's called pejorative. Kind of degrading or insulting the other party. So Mahayana Buddhists, they use Mahayana tradition, they use that term Hinayana to identify their opponents or Theravada Buddhists. Theravada, they did not identify themselves as Hinayana because nobody wanted to degrade oneself, right? So they did not use that term to identify themselves, but their opponents, Mahayana, they used the term Hinayana for the Theravada tradition. So you should understand this difference, Hinayana and Mahayana. If you want to translate the word, it is the lower vehicle and the greater vehicle. Why you use the word vehicle? Vehicle is something that you can move, you can go from one place to the other. So in Buddhism, when you are on the path of practice, that means you are on the go. You are moving from lower level to a higher status. Perhaps like from average human being to an enlightened person. You are going on that path. So to go on that path, you have to get into a vehicle. Vehicle means the path, right? So why then this, the new tradition, Mahayana is identified as a higher vehicle or greater vehicle? That's one of the big differences between these two traditions. You have to understand this thing. One of the things, when the Buddha was alive, the Buddhas in the early Buddhist teachings, the teaching says that you can become a Buddha, or you can become an Arahant, enlightened person, enlightened being, or there was another option, you can become a partial Buddha, Pacceka Buddha. Pacceka Buddha is like you are enlightened, but still you are not going to share your understanding with others. That's why they are called only partial Buddhas. Pacceka Buddha, Buddha, but like half. Half because they cannot teach. They cannot share their understanding with the followers or with the community. Whereas the Arahant is also a enlightened person, one who has attained the enlightenment, and one who has sharing the understanding, knowledge, whatever the things with the others. But it is a little bit lower than the Buddha. Buddha is the one who discovered the path and also who attained supreme, it is called supreme enlightenment, because he is the one who first attained it. So in the early Buddhist tradition, there was these three options, I would say options, yes. You could either become a Buddha and be released from suffering, or you can become a Pacceka Buddha, partial Buddha, and be free from suffering. And the third option is you can become an Arahant and be free from suffering. So you may ask the question now, what are the difference between these three, Buddha, and the Arahant, and the Pacceka Buddha? They are similar in one sense. What is the one sense? What is that one sense? They all have eradicated their suffering. They all have got liberation from samsara, suffering. But there are some little differences, like Buddha is the one who discovered the path and one who attained enlightenment first. Arahants are the one who followed it and became the enlightened person. So with regards to, in terms of enlightenment, all these three people are the same. There are some different characteristics between these three types. So in early Buddhism, if you want to be free from suffering, if you want to attain enlightenment, there were three options. That is what I want to share with you. Three options: either become a Buddha, Pacceka Buddha, or Arahant. Whereas when Mahayana came into existence, as I told you, towards the turn of the century, around 1st century BCE and the 1st century CE, during that time, the new trend, I would use that word, new trend, which we call Mahayana, they came into existence and they said, oh, you guys have three different paths. You are very low in your practice. Whereas we, Mahayana, we have only one vehicle, one path. We all are trying to be the Buddha. We don't have secondary Arahanto, Pacceka Buddha. We don't have those goals. We have only one goal. One goal is to attain the supreme enlightenment, just like the Buddha. So their strive, their effort is to attain Buddhahood, become a Buddha. That is why they are great. That is why their vehicle is called greater vehicle. Whereas Theravada, because they have three options, multiple, right? Three options, so they are lower. That's why Hinayana and Mahayana. That is one of the big differences. And the very interesting thing is, it has been the practice among the scholars of Buddhism over the last, I would say, 2 centuries, around 2 centuries. The scholars have been studying these two traditions by looking at their differences. You put Theravada on one side as opposed to Mahayana on the other side, and you find differences in these two traditions. One difference, as I told you now, is Theravada is following the three paths, whereas Mahayana is following only the one path, the greater path, Mahayana, right? That's like that. They were trying to find out the differences between these two traditions. In fact, when I was learning Buddhism a long time ago, I started doing the same thing. But nowadays, the trend is different. Nowadays, the scholars are not trying to find differences between these two traditions, but they are focusing on similarities between these two. What are the commonalities, similarities between Theravada and Mahayana? And when you see like that, you see a very good connection between these two traditions, and you feel like they are the same. They are the same. They are following the fundamental teachings that we were talking. They believe both traditions accept those teachings the same. Only some historical differences, developments and differences you find. Basic teachings are the same. And there are some other teachings that these two traditions came along with, and they are the differences between these traditions. But rather than looking at the differences, it is much easier for you to look at these two traditions as the same branches, I mean, two branches of the same tree, right? When you look at that way, okay, there are two branches, but the same tree, not two branches of two different trees, right? Two branches of the same tree. If you look at that way, then you can have a positive feeling towards these two. Whereas when I was started to learn about these things, at that time, we were encouraged to look at these traditions, as opposed to the other one. What are the differences? Even the questions, when the professors gave us questions, the question was like, what are the differences between these two traditions? But nowadays I see, what are the similarities between these two traditions? The approach, the difference of approach. So when you have an open mind, do look at things that way. When you have closed mind, you are trying to find differences. That's an extra thing. So anyway, Mahayana Buddhism, when did it come into existence? As I told you, during the turn of the century, from BCE to CE, during that period of time. And important thing is, Theravada Buddhism at the beginning, they did not have writing. They did not write anything at that time. I don't know why. In India, writing was not at that time. But when Mahayana came into existence, they started writing. So they had more opportunity. They were educated and they could write down things. So things, when you write down something, it's kind of permanent. But the earliest writings of Mahayana, as has been found so far, they say it belongs to the third or fourth centuries. I mean, third or fourth CE, when Buddhist texts were taken from India to China, they started translating those texts. Those are the first ever found written evidence of Mahayana literature. So Mahayana Buddhism, they developed a very vast literature, like sutras, different sorts of names, big, huge literature where they discuss about their teachings and other things. And there are certain arguments leveled against Theravada tradition. Because Arahant, the concept of Arahant was challenged. Because in Theravada Buddhism, Arahant is a highly recognized enlightened person. That is the goal. Most of the practitioners, their goal was to be an Arahant and be from suffering, away from suffering. So Mahayana challenged that idea. They were putting arguments against the liberation of the Arahant. That clash, that challenge is you find in many texts of the Mahayana. And the other important thing in Mahayana Buddhism is that they say Buddha is transcendental. I don't know whether it's a big word for you. Transcendental means Buddha exists always. Whereas in Theravada Buddhism, you know, the Buddha Siddhartha Gautama, he was born, he was raised in this society, and he had his enlightenment and all that. Then he passed away at the age of 80. He was a human figure, nothing more than that. But in Mahayana Buddhism, they say, no, 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 no. Buddha is not a human. In human form, you see Buddha because Buddha appears in this human world to show you that to conform with the it's called Lokanuvartana, to conform with the existing world, to show you that he is living in here. But truly, he is not on this earth. He is superhuman and he exists all the time. Time to time, he appears on this world to in Nirmana Kaya or in formation body, so that the people in the world could follow him, could see him. Otherwise, Buddha is transcendental. He does not belong to this world. He lives in another world, another plane of existence. That kind of idea. So Buddha has, he has three bodies. So one body is the one that you see as a Buddha, as Gautama Buddha, he appears on this world. Otherwise, his Dhamma Kaya, his body of Dharma, it exists all the time. It's called Dharmakaya, body of Dharma. And another body, he appears in the heavenly realm as Sambhogakaya. Sambhogakaya means a body of kind of enjoyment. They appear for the devas, for the divine beings, celestial beings. He appears in a celestial body. That is called Sambhogakaya. So these three bodies, Buddha has three bodies. Gautama Buddha, born in India and attained enlightenment and all that, that is his Nirmanakaya, his creative body or formation body. So in this way, there are some differences between these two branches. When I say differences, be careful. That's the way they explain these things. Their approach of looking at these things were they had little differences. Otherwise, our focus in this class is to learn the basic fundamental core teachings of Buddhism. In Mahayana also, those teachings that we were discussing in this class over the last 10 weeks, about 8-9 weeks, they are the same. Four Noble Truths, Noble Eightfold Path, Nirvana, Karma, all those teachings, Anatta, no self, all those teachings are the same. The emphasis may be a little different. One tradition emphasizes on certain things more than the other traditions, somewhat that kind of thing. Other than that, the foundations, fundamental teachings, the core teachings are the same. Historical development, when Mahayana spread into other parts of the world out of India, so then it became, anything would be like that. When you go, the Buddhism in America is now totally different from Buddhism in Asia. It depends on the culture and surrounding. So that is called assimilation. You can easily get adjusted to the situation. Buddhism has that capacity. So Mahayana Buddhism, now you should be able to talk something about Mahayana Buddhism and also Theravada Buddhism, as we discussed last time. And also you can do a little research, more research on Mahayana Buddhism, history and other things, basic fundamental teachings of Mahayana Buddhism. many other things. This is a big, huge subject, but we just gave an introduction. So with that, I conclude today's lecture. So next week, remember, we have the final exam. So we will do a little review, and then I will give you the exam. So get ready for the exam, as you are familiar with the type of, with the style that I follow. So get ready for that thing. And if you have any question, please feel free to email me so I can reach you. Okay. Thank you very much.